edition of the Traction Reaction Podcast. I'm Steve Zautke, along with the Polish Pipe Bomb, Jeff Orloski. And a pretty exciting week in motorsports, especially, with us bitching about Michigan. Lo and behold, get a couple of good races. Proving once again, Jeff, we don't know jack shit, do we?
No, we don't. And let me tell you, man, it was surprising to me because, we talked about how Michigan's not either of our favorite tracks, but you had two great races on Michigan. And let me tell you, I was sitting there and I'm watching it and I'm like, am I enjoying it this much because it's that good of racing? Or am I enjoying it this much because it's not another damn road course? And finally, I sat there after about, 30 seconds of having a little war inside my head. And I said, you know what? Who cares? This is awesome. It was like Christmas morning, not watching left and right turns.
Listen to you. I liked it. And surprising, just when you thought it was going to be a Hendrick runaway, get a late restart, lo and behold, Ryan Blaney, of all people, for a while, it looked like it was going to be Brad Keselowski, through strategy, was going to be able to put himself out in front, but it actually was Ryan Blaney, and you're thinking, well, Byron or Larson or one of these guys are going to pass him, maybe even Kurt Busch, but nice job. And we're finally seeing the Ryan Blaney that I thought we were going to see the whole year. And don't look now, but he's got 2 wins.
Yeah, and it's funny because you remember back in the final inspection days, it seemed like almost every time we had a driver with some good equipment on that show, they won the next week. And so I sat there and said on here a week or two ago that Ryan Blaney's not having the most productive of seasons for him. And I thought that his results would be better, and lo and behold, he parks it in victory lane. So if any of the drivers, Kevin Harvick, hello, shoot me a message and I'll sit there and talk some smack about you on here, and then you'll get your first win of the season.
Well, it's interesting to see, because we have 2 great races at Michigan, and I'm thinking, the Saturday's Xfinity race was just awesome.
Phenomenal. Yeah.
It was so cool seeing Josh Berry, and kudos to Dale Jr., who once again keeps improving and improving, and was showing up. Don't do that, Josh. And sure enough, you could see, he'd dive into it, put himself in a position aerodynamically, which wouldn't be the most prudent for him. Junior's kind of trying to coach him, from the booth, and he's driving, a Junior Motorsports car, subbing in the number 1 car, doing a hell of a job for a first time being at Michigan, and it looked like he was going to win that thing. And lo and behold, once again, AJ Allmendinger, though, gets the big win in the Cup Series at Indianapolis, and now this week wins in the Xfinity Series. And the other thing, out of nowhere, was Brandon Jones finishing second. Where was he all day?
Yeah. He wasn't running up in the top 5, and it was great to see. It was great for the dinger. It's great to sit there and another example where you could sit there and put a stick in the guy's eye who sits there and says that momentum isn't a real thing. You're damn right it is, and it makes a hell of a lot of difference in racing. It makes a hell of a lot of difference in all of sport. So momentum is huge. Great for AJ. Again, he had that kid in the candy store look when he got out of the car, just the raw, pure emotion. It's a beautiful thing to see. I did think that Josh Berry was going to win it. I was kind of surprised at how well. I'm not a fan of Dale Jr. per se. I'm not a fan of Dale Jr. in the booth per se. A lot of that has to do with his voice and the way it sounds, and less about what he says. Jeff Burton. But, it was, you could see the mistakes that Barry was making that he won't make again, being there, getting more experience and drive time and all that. That kid is going to be good, man. And all signs and all arrows are pointing straight up for Josh Berry.
Yeah, they certainly are. Then he even gets a start in the on the Cup side, in the 7 car. Up until about 3 months ago, really wasn't sure where his career was going to go, and is able to sign a 1 year or a full time deal next year in the 8 car for Junior Motorsports. And not only that, but is getting some spot cup starts now, and is has been busy.
Yeah, he was saying that he had thoughts of leaving the sport because we talked last week about how old he is for a up and coming rookie driver and all that. So he's not, the typical dude that comes in with A, funding, and B, is, 22, 24 years old. And so, it's great to see. I love it for us old guys. Josh Berry is, yeah, obviously he's still a hell of a lot younger than us, Steve,
Right.
but he's closer. He's a lot
Yeah.
closer than Ty Gibbs and guys like that. And it's nice to see. Ty Gibbs did have a little spin action there in the Xfinity series, but everybody makes mistakes. So but just a great weekend overall for NASCAR. I was surprised. I didn't think the 550 package was going to deliver, but it sure as hell did.
Yeah, and once again, another strong run from Brett Moffitt in that '02 car. He seems like he's always getting a lot of top tens in that one, and the '48 car too, in the Scott Borchetta car. For a guy who had very, very limited experience in a stock car, getting a top 10 at Michigan is pretty impressive. Just going back to the Cup Series too, Matt DiBenedetto with a top 10. I think he was looking for something a little bit more, though, wasn't he?
Yeah, he definitely was, but beggars can't be choosers right now. Matty D, we talked about it last time on how he's racing for his cup life. So any top 10, any top 5, anything that he can do to help set him apart. He was able to get a nice finish this week without having 75% of the field wreck out like it did the week before in Indianapolis. And so it was good to see him get it done with all in all, a full field still intact at the end.
Brad Keselowski, who of course is moving to the 6 car, ninth place. I'm sure he's not too wasn't too thrilled about that. And then Kevin Harvick too, 14th finish for him. Looking at the points,
15 or 16.
Yeah, Daytona's coming up. If there's any place that he can win, it's certainly this weekend at Daytona, isn't it?
Well, he better hope so. And it's rough to see, obviously, as a Harvick fan. But you see the guy dominate last season. Doesn't even make the Final Four at Phoenix, which was a complete total disappointment. You go head to head with Denny Hamlin all year. You're the biggest story in NASCAR for the entire season. And neither one of those two drivers Hamlin made the Final Four, but he finished 4th. But, that was disappointing. And then this season has just been crazy. Harvick doesn't have a win, but Eric Almirola does. So if you would have sat there and gone to Vegas and had that thought and put money down on that, you'd be a rich man and you wouldn't be living in the conditions that I am now. But so I wish my crystal ball worked a little bit better. But yeah, that whole Stewart Haas team starting to come on a little bit now. Chase Briscoe's had, decent finishes back to back. Almirola got a win a couple of, 2-3 weeks ago, something like that. So, maybe they're starting to show something, but the 4 isn't showing anything. And he's carried that entire team for a long, long time.
I tell you, it's going to be fun watching your favorite driver in the 3 car, Austin Dillon, and him and teammate Tyler Reddick, see them battle for that final playoff spot. Of course, Tyler Reddick right now has a pretty good advantage, but with Daytona, with the wrecks, with the big one and everything else, anything could be possible.
Yeah, usually Austin Dillon, only shows up at the super speedways and maybe 2 other races a season. So, that makes me happy. It also makes me sad because I don't get to make fun of him much because they never show him. But yeah, no, that should be a hell of a battle. Reddick and Harvick. If there's a surprise winner, if there's a first time winner that's going to sit there and sneak his ass into the playoffs, that means that either Reddick or Harvick is out. And there's just a lot of drama going into Daytona. That's always packed with drama.
What using the conventional points, Harvick is 9th in points. I was looking at the conventional points. Tyler Reddick is actually in the 11th place. Dillon's in 13th. McDowell's in 19th. So it kind of makes sense. Bubba Wallace in 21st. For many years, it was always the top 20. You wanted to get into the top 20 back in the old days because that's where it paid off. Using the old system, Bubba Wallace is within striking distance of Ross Chastain. Certainly overperformed what they were doing earlier in the year. Now what? All bets are off though at Daytona. Chastain could be running 4th and take off 2/3 of the field. So it's interesting seeing not looking at the old point systems, how some of these guys look. Doesn't really change. It changes somewhat, but Kyle Larson has a commanding lead using the old point system over Denny Hamlin, Kyle Busch, William Byron, and then Chase Elliott. That's your top 5. It'll be interesting to see with 13 have wins. There's 16 positions. So it could be, you could get a guy like Denny Hamlin, Harvick, or Tyler Reddick that actually win. What if Austin Dillon can get a win, or somebody else, or maybe really get an upset? What if somebody like Eric Jones or even Bubba Wallace gets a win?
Hold on, Steve. Don't start talking about Eric Jones or Bubba Wallace getting wins. You're going to get drug tested here, okay? So
anything can happen. I mean, it is Daytona. You get 2/3 of the field taken out.
Anything can happen, but those two will not win. I guarantee it. And obviously Bubba's a good super speedway guy. That's, he's always up there on those kind of tracks. So, it will be interesting. Like you said, with Ganassi having, doing a little bit better. You want to talk about Band-Aid on just a gaping, wound. You sit there and you lose Kyle Larson, and and now we're talking about how they're having a little bit better season because these guys aren't wrecking out every week. So it's going to be interesting. Somebody's going to have to sit there and get in the middle of the Hendrick train and disrupt it. And I don't care if it's going to be Kyle Busch, or if it's got to be, Logano or Keselowski, Harvick, somebody, you got to break these guys up. And, I understand, the early, probably 60, 70% of the race, we'll see the manufacturers ride around together just to log laps and stuff. But when it comes money time, somebody's going to have to put their nose in there and get it to stick to break that train if you want to beat those guys. And, it's going to be interesting. It's going to be really interesting.
And then Sunday, racing returns to the Milwaukee Mile. Of course, we're real excited about that. The ARCA Menards Series is returning to the Milwaukee Mile for a race this Sunday afternoon. And it's not just the ARCA Menards Series. We're also going to have the Mid-Am Racing Series and the Big 8 Racing Series late models, and then the Upper Midwest Vintage Racing Series. So the headliners, which is going to be the ARCA Series, with a couple of young drivers, Jeff, that we need to look for.
Yeah, Corey Heim, Ty Gibbs. 1 point separates these guys in the championship standings. Only 5 races remain in the ARCA Series this season. And, like I said, 1 point. They ran a doubleheader last weekend. 1 race at Michigan, 1 race on the dirt in Springfield. They each won 1. So it doesn't get much closer than this. And it's going to be a hell of a showing. Can I just say that, how wonderful it is, to have racing back at the mile. And, they've done a few races there and everything like that. And at least personally to me, I think attendance has been underwhelming. There's no excuse for you guys not to go out there on Sunday. There's no NASCAR. There's nothing. Get your ass out to the mile and go show how Milwaukee supports racing. You know, we love it. We pack Slinger, we pack Plymouth and Beaver Dam and all that kind of stuff on a weekly basis. You can take your happy ass to the mile and enjoy the show. You know, like you said, 4 different series running. It's going to be one hell of an afternoon.
Yeah, it should be a pretty neat deal. Of course, with the grandstands open at 9 a.m. Tickets can be purchased on race day. The ARCA Menards feature race begins at 2 o'clock. But like I said, you got Big 8 late models. You have the vintage cars out there and the mid-am cars. It's going to be a lot of activity. There's going to be constant activity on the track. So it should be pretty cool.
Yeah, it's great. And, you know, what a great, you know, Menards is such a fantastic sponsor of all different types of motorsports. And for them to be a Wisconsin company and all of that, you know, I would really like to see them, you know, try to make this a permanent thing to bring the mile back. And, you know, I do think that us as race fans, you know, I'm snobby when it comes to NASCAR. I love NASCAR, but I love Saturday night dirt tracking too. And I, you know, I've got no problem going to watch the ARCA series. I would watch, you know, a couple of old ladies race a hover around a retirement home. You know, I just love that kind of stuff. And so, you know, you can't be a snob and say, oh, well, it's not IndyCar at the mile, so I'm not interested. Shut up and get out there, have some fun,
Exactly.
Bring the whole family. It's going to be a great time.
Yeah, looking forward to it. And don't forget, there's also the homecoming. It's going to be his first race from Franklin, Wisconsin. Of course, Sam Mayer, who I got to interview earlier this week on the Traction Reaction podcast. So make sure and take a look and cheer on Sam Mayer, local hero. So it should be a lot of fun. And Ty Gibbs, whenever Ty Gibbs and Sam Mayer get in a race, it's always some good racing action. Of course, you got Corey Haim and the Venturini cars, of course. Bill Venturini, a long time ARCA competitor when he was from the Chicago area, now based, the team is based and run by his son Billy in Charlotte. And let's not forget some of the past winners, such as Dean Roper, won an ARCA race, and going back to the 50s and 60s, ARCA and USAC did a few races where they combined even a convertible race, Jeff, back in 1959, I believe. There was an ARCA USAC race, and the ARCA convertible cars were there. And one of the most notable, of course, that day was Nelson Stacy, a notable 57 Chevrolet red number 2 convertible was racing at the Milwaukee Mile. Fortunately, I'm too young to remember that, but that must have been kind of cool to see those cars and see the convertibles race at the Milwaukee Mile. So come on out to the Milwaukee Mile this Sunday and see some great racing for the Sprecher 150 ARCA race.
Who's your pick in that race?
I'd love to see Sam Mayer win, local kid, win at the Milwaukee Mile. He said it probably would be his biggest win, even more than that truck race at Bristol.
I don't buy that, but
you know, it's the Milwaukee Mile. I mean, seriously, I mean, Alan Kawicki, he always said that winning the Miller 200 ASA race in '83 was a huge win for him. It was so cool, and that was a big crowd that day back in 1983. And he said that's a win that really propelled him. And obviously, it's not as big as winning the championship in '92, but he said that win was very special to him and helped really propelled his career.
Well, I think if Sam Mayer wins on Sunday, I think it would be very special to him. I do think the trophy from Bristol will take the higher shelf in his trophy case. But you know, I'm going to be rooting for Mayer as well. But I'm going to go with Haim just because his name isn't Gibbs, and you know, I would like to see Sam Mayer sit there and kind of, you know, put his foot down and keep the youngsters at bay and say, hey man, I moved up already. You know, you guys still got a little bit of learning to do, but we'll see. So either way, it should be one hell of a race. You know, the top 3 guys going head to head, and you know, it's going to be a lot of fun.
All right, very good, Jeff. Certainly appreciate you taking time out. And once again, thanks to Bob Sargent at Track Enterprises for bringing racing back to the Milwaukee Mile. Hope to see all the fans out there. Make sure to say hi to us when you see us out there. And we'll talk to you next time on the Traction Reaction Podcast.